Hmm. Let's take a moment to settle into a comfortable sitting posture. As we settle in, maybe take this opportunity to let go of any stress that you brought with you from earlier in the day. Just simply let it go. It doesn't need to be here. You might take a few deep breaths, really letting go on the exhale, letting that physical relaxation comes on the exhale. Letting that relax the mind too. The helpful attitude to have when meditating is one of relaxation and ease. We often come to meditation from a place of wanting, wanting a certain outcome or state of mind. It's often not helpful. It's often more helpful to simply relax, just be present with what is as much as possible. We might start to notice the feelings of the breath at the tip of the nose. These sensations arise and pass away all on their own. There's nothing we need to do to make them happen. We can simply receive and notice in the same way that a radio antenna receives radio signals. It doesn't need to do anything, it just receives. You might check if any tension or contraction has come into experience, some sort of focusing down on the breath. And if that's the case, you might see if that can be let go of and simply return to this attitude of relaxed receiving. And as the attention continues to rest on the breath at the nostrils, you might notice that the sensation starts to change. It might have more depth to it, more surface. It might break apart or change. It might shift from a solid object to something different. A feeling of energy moving around, tingling or vibration. This is okay. There's nothing to do with that. Just notice if that occurs. You might take note of your attitude. See if any more relaxation can be cultivated. There's no need for any tension or forcing. Just relax and receive whatever is present. noticing the sensations of the breath in ever more detail. And when the mind gets lost in thought, as it inevitably does, just bring attention back to the breath with as much kindness and gentleness as you can manage. There's no need for any self criticism or judgment. Getting lost is what the mind does, and it's very good at that. And now, while keeping the attention on the breath at the nostrils, you may let awareness expand into the other sense domains: sound, sight, feeling of the body, thought. In the same way as when you're focused on an object with your eyes, you can let your peripheral awareness widen to encompass the whole field of vision. So let everything be known and received. Sights and sounds and feelings and thought be present. Let awareness remain on the breath. The mind is open, wide, and spacious, and at the same time focused. The mind experiences the flow of phenomena of sound, sight, feeling, thought. It's anchored in presence by attention on the breath. Just resting in this ceaseless flow of sensation arising and passing away, completely relaxed, just receiving. Nothing needs to be done about what rises and passes away. It's just there to be experienced. As one rests in this flow of phenomena arising and passing away, there's a natural process that happens. It's a process of dissolution. Any contraction or sense of self, or sense of identity around the body or thoughts tends to dissolve over time. There's not anything that's needed to be done to make this happen. It simply happens, just as when you drop an ice cube into a cup of hot tea. It naturally dissolves. So too, when the mind rests in open, spacious, wide awareness, the sense of self starts to dissolve. The felt sense meditating becomes more easeful, more relaxed, more flowing. There's less resistance to what is. And of course, there are other things that are going on in the mind too. There is the tendency to dissolve over time. You may note that. Anything that feels solid or stable, any tension or clenching or contraction, we let go of. And as we sit here, as this flow of phenomena arising and passing away, note that there is nothing outside of this flow. All of the sense spaces are covered. Sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, mental phenomena. Nothing we experience is outside of those. So I'd like us to consider one aspect of experience. In a moment, I will give you a question. And the way to use this question is not in the way that we typically approach questions. The way to use this is not to go off in thought. It's not to use logic. It's not to refer to memory. The way to approach this question is just to look in direct experience. In the sight, sound, smell, taste, feeling, and mental phenomena. Look at those and see if an answer arises. So in this flow of phenomena arising and passing away, what am I? Feeling we have of ourselves is of something solid and immutable. But nothing in experience is solid or immutable. Everything in direct experience changes. So what am I? And if thoughts or memory arises, it's okay, but that form of thinking will not provide you true happiness. The answer to this question can be found in direct experience. And only in direct experience will you find peace. In direct experience, what am I? Your direct experience of the world is that of constant change. We think of ourselves as stable and permanent. How can that be? In direct experience, what am I? Before we end the sit, I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for your practice today and in general. What you do makes your lives better. It lessens your suffering, but it also lessens the suffering of those around you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all. And hi, Charles Lee. Hi, Xiaohan. So, what are you? Um, it's too bad I'm not doing a PowerPoint presentation in this moment. I had the idea that my first slide could be just a big giant question mark as an answer to that. That's what I want to talk about today, the mystery of what we are. And I hope you got a little flavor for that in the meditation. It's a little hard to do in that kind of period of time, but I hope you got some sense that there's a difference between what you think you are and what you actually are. That's what I want to talk about today, the mystery of our being. It is a little counterintuitive to think that we have mystery to us, just sitting here in this moment. I'm sure there's some feeling of, maybe you're not perfectly certain, but there's some feeling of solidity to this body, some idea that I am, whatever your name is, and some kind of continuity between your day and what's likely to happen in the future, in the evening. So some ideas about what you are. This is the world of thought, like this. These ideas that we have about ourselves, about what we are. That's all part of the world of thought. There's another world too. There's a world of direct experience. These are not two kind of physically separate worlds. They're really maybe two perspectives would be another way to put it. In the same way as if you see the world with sunglasses versus seeing the world without sunglasses, it's two very different worlds, but it's two ways of seeing the same thing. So we have direct experience and the world of thought. And the world of direct experience is a world of mystery. The world of direct experience is just the present moment, just the sights and sounds and thoughts and whatnot that are arising and passing away in this moment. Direct experience has no certainty about what's going to happen in the future or what has happened in the past. The world of thought is the exact opposite. There's a feeling of certainty about what we are and what we will be and what we have been. You can also think of this in terms of the world of direct experience is a world full of open possibilities, whereas the world of thought, the possibilities for the future are closed down into a narrow kind of corridor. And when we think in about practice in these terms, we can think about the different layers of belief that we have about ourselves, kind of like peeling back the layers of the onion. And each of these ideas that we have about ourselves has some area to it, some aspect that the mind really doesn't want to look at. It just doesn't want to deal with it at all, and just says the world is this way, and I'm not going to examine it. And I'm just going to take that as true. And we do this. We have these kind of artificial feelings of certainty because this is the mind's attempt at solving our problems. So we have all these kind of needs. We have these physical needs for food and shelter, we have these emotional needs for safety and for being loved and such. And when the mind looks at those problems and it says, "I want to be loved," it might think something like, well, if I'm a kind person or I'm a successful person, then people will love me. And so if it has those beliefs and it holds them with certainty, when it's looking at them from that place of certainty, that problem is solved. Does that make sense? It's not solved in actuality, but it's just solved from that viewpoint. So we have an incentive to treat the world as certain when in actuality it's not. And so I want to talk about kind of examining this, these beliefs and finding a place to kind of come at the world from a place of mystery. So as we peel back the onion of our self-belief, we can talk about our kind of psychological beliefs. Things like, I am an anxious person. When we use mindfulness to examine this, we start to see things like, well, sometimes there's anxiety, but sometimes there's not. So this statement is not always true. And we start to see things like, well, when anxiety arises, it's caused by these certain factors. And when these certain factors are not present, anxiety is not present. So we see it's just kind of this this thing that happens when circumstances arise, but not when they aren't. And so we can start to step back from this belief and come to a place of mystery about what we are in the kind of psychological level. And this is helpful for us because when we're not caught in the idea of, I'm an anxious person, we can experience situations and not have that belief make that become a reality. We can just experience a situation. Sometimes we may be anxious, and sometimes we may not be. So we can do this for all of our kind of psychological beliefs, all of our identities or roles or seeming characteristics we have. And as we learn to do this, we find that there's a fluidity to our psyche. We can take on these identities and these roles and these characteristics in the same way we can put on a different set of clothes. And our life becomes much better when we can do this. Just in the same way as, if we only have one set of clothes, sometimes we're going to be cold or hot, depending on what the weather is. But if we can choose our clothes or choose our how to show up in a psychological sense, we can choose what's appropriate for the situation and kind of move and flow with things. We can talk about living from a place of mystery in terms of the body. I think that's maybe a little tougher than finding the mystery to our psyche. The body seems sort of solid and stable and still. But you might have gotten some inkling into the mystery of the body in meditation. When you first come to meditation and you first start looking at something like the breath, it often seems one way. It seems kind of small and uninteresting and dull and maybe solid. But over time, you see that the breath becomes very different. And so you see that, your picture of the body is not reality. And the way the body shows up in the moment can be different. It's something of a mystery. Mm. When we do this, we find quite a bit of freedom from the ideas of from the suffering that comes around old age and sickness and death. I'll just share an example for me. I really enjoy weightlifting, and I have done for many years. And weightlifting is very much a young person's game, and I'm less of a young person now. Um, and what many weightlifters notice is that there's a certain point in their lives when the body doesn't doesn't act or respond in the way it used to. And I noticed this for me when I was about 33. Um, I was not at all open to the mystery of the body being different than it was. I knew how my body was and I knew how I wanted it to be. And when reality turned out to be different, it was very hard for me. I didn't accept that at all. I reacted to that by just kind of training harder. My battery's running out. 1 second. I solved that problem. Yeah, it took me quite a while to kind of come to terms with that, to open to the idea that this body is not the way that I thought it would be or wanted it to be. But when I did, there was quite a bit of peace around that. Mm. And so if we come to the idea that these bodies are kind of curious things, and we don't know how they're going to show up tomorrow or next year, we can face the inevitable changes that come with old age and sickness with a little more ease, I think. We can also talk about coming at the world from a place of mystery in terms of our craving and aversion. This is a craving and aversion is probably the most fundamental way we think about ourselves as a kind of separate individual person. It's craving and aversion is the way that we react to the world, and we define ourselves by how we react to different things in the world. But this is something that we can see through too. We tend to understand these feelings of craving and aversion as coming from us. You know, the mind really doesn't like to examine that idea. But if we do, we can see that these feelings of craving and aversion come from the exact same place that everything else comes from, sounds and sights and thoughts and such. And just as, you know, a sound at one moment is not present in experience, and the next moment is present, and the moment after that is not present, so too our craving and aversion behave that way. And when we start to see this, something very interesting happens that will really change your worldview. We understand that all phenomena are just arising from somewhere and passing away to somewhere. And when we can hold them all together, we put a name around that place that they're coming from and going to. And in the Buddhist context, that's called nibbana, the source of experience. In other contexts, that's called God. And when we can embrace the mystery at that level of being, the world gets very different. Yeah, but there's one further level we can go. When you're seeing the world that way, there's really only one belief or certainty left. And some of you guys who've been here before have heard me talk about this when I guide meditations, but that's just the fact of awareness. You know, there's all these phenomena arising and passing away. When you're perceiving the world at that level, the thing that you think of yourself as is awareness. But that too is something that can be seen through. That's a certainty that can be let go of. there's an experience that can be had. Um, this world that's unfolding, this experience that we're living, it's often talked about as a dream, this dream that we're dreaming. The experience is of the dream shutting off, not in the sense that, this body dies or anything like that, but the dream just stops. And when the dream comes back on, there's some residue of the experience that was had when the dream was not being dreamt that um, gives you access to something outside the dream, outside this experience. And that information really changes how you see the world. And then this dream just becomes the dream. And this dream doesn't have any certainty to it. It's just a dream. Mm. So certainty binds reality. It creates structure in the past and future. And when that certainty goes, all that's left that's true is the present moment, direct experience. Mm. The beliefs we have about the world are still there. The mind still works. It still matches patterns in the way it does. It still looks at the world and tries to figure out what comes next. But there's no solidity to them. There's no certainty to them. And the deeper this sense of mystery penetrates, the less suffering we have. Mm. When you're fluid and mutable at the psychological level, you can adapt to different people in different situations in a way that you can't when you're stuck in I am this and I behave in the world in this way. When you're fluid and mutable at the level of the body, you can adapt to the changing fortunes of your body. And when you accept the mystery at the more fundamental levels, um, you really don't know what you are at all, and that is freedom. It's freedom from suffering. That's what's promised by the path. So I think this way of talking about it is it's kind of legible, and I think it's probably understandable to most folks why being more fluid and having less certainty results in a life with more suffering. But there's something else too that is also very important and very useful to understand. But I find I have a harder time talking about it. Um, I'll try to. So this certainty that we have about the world, it holds us down. It keeps our head looking at our feet. We know what's going to happen, and we're focused on that. It keeps us from looking up at the sky and having a different experience than we expected. When you don't have a certainty about what's going to come next, about how you're going to show up in the world, there's naturally curiosity and wonder. Um, there's awe and there's joy. Maybe you guys have been around little kids recently. I'm fortunate to have a couple little nephews, and you can see this this wonder and joy that comes from just not knowing what things are, and we can have that too. Experience just mundane experience, just very ordinary, very um, simple life circumstances can become something very different. Right now we're all sitting here and having whatever experience we're having. But if you could, if you could take your certainty and you could dial it all the way down and dial that mystery all the way up, experience would be something very different. Experience might be something like when you let all that certainty go, you understand that how you are being expressed in this present moment is a result of this functionally infinite web of causes and conditions that stretches across the whole universe from the beginning of time to the end of time. And what you are in this moment is an expression of that. And it's this infinitesimally small piece of this great, great, great whole. You are part of the infinite. And in this moment, how that's being expressed is the universe is balanced perfectly on this present moment, just um, just perfectly balanced. And you are the axis mundi. This means the point around which the world turns. The actions of this body and this mind are in this moment tipping the universe forward onto whatever path that's being walked. And when you experience the world that way, life is very different. Life is very different. You're not so caught up in the mundane problems of worrying about getting whatever you need to whatever needs to be finished at work tomorrow. You can open your heart to other beings. Life is very different. This is why we practice. We practice to see this sort of thing. You can live your life from the mundane viewpoint just fine. And, I know several of you here, you guys are all intelligent and capable people. I'm sure you can live like happy and fulfilling lives otherwise. But when we can see the world clearly in this way, we open up new and better ways of being. So this is why we do it. Sometimes seeing from a place of mystery is hard. Okay, I mentioned that we have these beliefs we have in order to kind of feel better about being able to solve these needs that we have. If we want to come from a place of mystery, we have to accept that we don't get to guarantee that we solve our problems. We don't get to guarantee that we're loved and we're safe and we always have food. And that's the truth of the matter. We don't get to guarantee those things. But it's hard to see that, and it's hard to accept that realization. But I will say that it's much, much better to come to the truth of the world that we don't get to guarantee those things through the practice of meditation, which tends to happen gradually and with some comfort and some caring kind of around that. It's much better to come to it that way than to be kind of dragged kicking and screaming into it by the events of the world. So that's what I would offer you tonight. Question your assumptions about the world, both kind of intellectually in the way that we're comfortable with questioning things, and experientially the way I was tried to show a bit of in the meditation. Thank you all.